Joining me now, Florida Congressman, House Judiciary Committee member Matt Gaetz. Congressman, great to see you. What do you make of what is developing on your committee?
Well, it wasn't enough that Bill Barr testified for hours before the Senate Judiciary Committee. It wasn't enough that Democrats had 3 of their presidential candidates on that committee. It wasn't enough that he'd come to the House and answer questions from our members. He was even willing to answer an additional hour of questions that wouldn't be under the 5-minute rule that could be divided among any of the Democrats on the House Judiciary Committee. But that wasn't enough. Chairman Jerry Nadler wanted to subject the Attorney General of the United States to questions from someone who was elected by no one. And you wonder why that's the case. Well, the only other time the House Judiciary Committee has ever allowed an outside counsel to ask questions to a witness in a full open committee hearing is during an impeachment proceeding. And that's what this is really all about. Democrats are trying to do impeachment in drag in the House Judiciary Committee. And I think Steve Forbes is right. The approach Republicans should take is to go on offense, expose the origins of this investigation, and to highlight their roots in the Obama White House.
Congressman Steve Forbes here. Do you think you and your colleagues are going to do that when Mueller comes to testify?
Precisely, and I'm going to ask Robert Mueller why, when he fired Peter Strzok, he never inquired as to the specific text messages about an insurance policy, about saying to his lover, Lisa Page, no, we'll stop him. What did those things mean? I'm sure curious. I think the American people are curious, but Robert Mueller never even asked. He never even wondered what evidence might have been polluted by Peter Strzok or Lisa Page. And remember, Peter Strzok is the person who initially opened up on George Papadopoulos.
Congressman, I want to note this. This is in the Wall Street Journal editorial called A Real Attorney General today about what went on in that Senate hearing yesterday. Bill Barr has made nearly all of the redactions in the Mueller report available to senior members of Congress to inspect at justice. Yet, as of this writing, only 3 members have bothered. Senate Judiciary Chairman Lindsey Graham, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, and House Republican on Judiciary Doug Collins. Not one Democrat howling about Mr. Barr's lack of transparency has examined the outrages they claim are hidden. James Freeman.
Yeah, I think that that does raise a question, Congressman. Is it sort of common knowledge that those redactions are not going to provide any additional ammunition, and so it's the Democratic strategy is to kind of draw out this process as long as possible with the suggestion that something is hidden within the redactions?
Of course this is a red herring that they're trying to dress up as some major scandal. 92% of the Mueller report is available to people. I liken this to a circumstance where you've seen that one team has won the baseball game, but the losing team wants to comb into the box score of the 3rd inning to say that they had a really good showing in that portion. We know what the conclusions are of the Mueller report. They're not going to change. What came out during yesterday's Senate hearing is that even Bob Mueller doesn't disagree with the conclusions that Bill Barr drew from his memoranda. And I think that at the end of the day, we will have Bob Mueller before the committee. And the question is whether we'll be able to expose what is the true problem here. And that is that the secret court, the FISA court, was essentially lied to when they weren't given complete information, and they violated the rights of Americans as a consequence.
Yeah, that after Bob Mueller took over the investigation, that the FISA warrant was renewed. I think he'd been on the job like a week, renewed in June, but not renewed in the fall. Almost 2 years ago.
Those renewals never contain the information about the individual who wrote the dossier, Christopher Steele. Democrats point to a footnote that identifies Glenn Simpson, but this was a foreign spy who was using information from Russians to try to delegitimize a United States presidential candidate. That's what Russia does. They're trying to delegitimize the entire system, and I fear that our own politicized intelligence community bought that hook, line, and sinker and participated in that Russian effort unwittingly.
Well, Congresswoman, meantime, your fellow Congressman Ilhan Omar commenting on the crisis in Venezuela yesterday, and I want to get your reaction to what she said. Listen to this.
A lot of the policies that we have put in place has kind of helped lead the devastation in Venezuela, and we've sort of set the stage for where we are arriving today. This particular bullying and the use of sanctions to eventually intervene and make regime change really does not help the people of countries like Venezuela, and it certainly does not help, and it's not in the interest of the United States.
Congressman Gaetz, your reaction to that?
Sadly, the people of Venezuela voted their way into socialism, and now they're having to fight their way out of it. That should be a lesson to us all. I'm proud of the Trump administration for imposing sanctions, for being tough, for organizing the international community to recognize the Guaido government. But I don't believe that right now a U.S. uniformed military on the ground in Venezuela will make a bad situation better. My fear is if we put troops on the ground at this time, that could potentially spill over to create mass protests in other Latin American capitals. While our intervention remains popular within Venezuela, U.S. military intervention directly is wildly unpopular in every other country in Latin America. And so I think we've got to be very cautious about that. But it's the Trump administration's policies that have brought us to this moment where the people who yearn to live freedom have the opportunity to fight for it.